My twin got a brand new Jeep for graduation, and I got a lone lottery ticket. I scratched it that night, and it hit $5 million. I stayed anonymous with a lawyer and a trust, moved out, and when my parents and twin demanded a cut, I refused and chose peace. AITA for keeping the win a secret from my family. My name is Leo Santos, and our graduation weekend smelled like charcoal and store-brand soda and the kind of backyard pride that makes neighbors peek through the fence as if joy were a competition. Our cul-de-sac in Clearwater was a loop of trimmed lawns and identical mailboxes. And for 18 years, my life had been a loop too. Teachers who knew my brother before they knew me. Coaches who asked if I was coming out for the team even after I told them I preferred the library. A family calendar that always seemed to tilt in one direction. That direction had a name, Damon, my twin. Born 9 minutes before me and honored as if the clock conferred a crown. He was the kind of boy who looked like every poster in the sporting goods store. Easy tan, easier smile, a laugh people leaned toward. He wore our last name like a brand, and I wore it like a receipt. If Damon was the fireworks, I was the broom. Our parents called this balance. They said Damon needed the push because football opened doors. They said I was independent, the kind of kid who handled things. They said the world rewards visible effort. They said so many things that sounded wise when I was 15 and sounded like excuses by the time I was packing a duffel for state college. Graduation day arrived with glossy banners and folding chairs that sank into the grass. The principal spoke about unlimited horizons in a voice that has probably been used at every graduation since the invention of podiums. Damon tossed his cap, and the crowd roared like a stadium. My name came later, and it sounded like a label being printed. No one was unkind. That was the trick. No one had to be unkind to make you feel small. All it took was to direct the light at someone else and call the resulting shadow a character-building exercise. Back home, the backyard had transformed into a Pinterest board, fairy lights, a dessert table, an army of sliders, paper fans taped to the fence as if a breeze could be ordered and delivered. My mother, Carmen, moved between coolers like an orchestra conductor. My father, Roberto, hovered near the grill, one hand on a spatula and the other pointing guests toward the photo backdrop he had made from crepe paper and love. When it was time for presents, the living room swelled with people and expectation. Damon bounced on the balls of his feet. His friends sprawled across our ancient couch and predicted a motorcycle or a jet ski. I stood near the bookshelf and nodded like I was part of the excitement. My mother pressed her lips together to hold back happy tears and handed Damon a small black fob. The room erupted before he even pressed a button. Everyone knew the shape of a victory before the reveal. We all spilled into the street like a parade. A brand new truck waited at the curb, a silver beast with mirrors that looked like folded wings. Bow on the hood, balloons tied to the handle like it was a birthday. Damon whooped and jabbed the start button, and the speakers immediately offered a country song about open roads and promises. He leaned out the window and shouted that he would run to the beach at dawn. I clapped because my hands knew how to clap on their own by now. Back inside, the noise melted into soft chatter. My father turned to me with a grin that tried to do 2 jobs at once and handed me a white envelope. He said, "This is for you, champ," in the tone people use when they know the thing they are handing you will require them to explain its meaning. Inside lay a lottery ticket and a gift card to a burger place. It would have been funny if every atom in my body had not already been trained to accept less without complaint. There were claps anyway. Someone shouted that luck loves underdogs. Someone else added that these tickets are blessed the week of graduation. I held the rectangle of paper as if it could sense insult. I went out to the porch and sat on the step. Miles, my best friend since elementary school, slid beside me with 2 cans of soda and no questions. He had that talent most grown adults never learn. He kept quiet until I was the one to speak. I said that I was okay, and he nodded to accept the lie. We listened to the distant brag of Damon's engine and the murmuring inside. I rubbed my thumb across the silver scratch area while wondering why people worship beginnings and forget the middle, where most living occurs. When the last guests left and the borrowed coolers were returned, and Damon drove his truck around the block 2 more times because noise was a new way of breathing, I went to my room. I put the lottery ticket on my desk next to my notebook, where I kept the passwords for every site I could not afford to subscribe to. I told myself I would check it in the morning for the comedy. Then I remembered I was still me, and there was work in the morning, and I should sleep. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and made the mistake of asking why. Why a truck for Damon and a maybe for me? Why the same speech about fairness every time the numbers came out tilted? Why did it feel easier to swallow pride than to spit out questions? At 2 in the morning, I turned on my desk lamp and downloaded the state lottery app. The scanner blinked like a lazy eye. I hovered my phone over the barcode and held my breath, even though I knew this was a theater. Numbers appeared as if summoned by a dare. The screen went white for a second. Then it said the amount due to the claimant, and the zeros arranged themselves into a language I had never spoken. 5 million, not 1,000. Million. My first thought was that the app was broken. My second thought was that I had won every argument I had never started. There was a sound in the hallway. My father passed my door and cleared his throat the way he did every night. My mother laughed softly in the kitchen, while rearranging leftover cake into plastic boxes. Damon arrived outside with the truck and texted in the driveway for a while before coming in. The house did not know it had changed. It slept the way it always slept, fat with certainty. I Googled frantic questions that millions of panicked strangers had Googled before me. First step, remain anonymous. Second step, hire a lawyer and a financial advisor. Third step, do not tell anyone immediately, especially not people who share your address and your expectations. I hid the ticket in a copy of a math workbook that no one had opened since middle school, and then hid the workbook behind the box of my childhood trophies. A plastic soccer player with a crooked foot finally had a purpose. The next morning, I told my parents I had an early shift at the campus bookstore because lying felt like protection. I drove my dented sedan downtown and parked a block away from a law office with glass like a mirror. Inside, a receptionist with perfect hair asked how she could help. I said I had won a life-changing amount and needed a lawyer who understood quiet. Half an hour later, I was sitting in front of an attorney named Ms. Patel, who radiated the calm of a person who spends her days shepherding panicked humans across unmarked fields. She gave me a list. Open a trust. Collect through the trust. Hire a tax consultant before you blink. Do not post purchases. Do not change habits for at least 3 months. She asked what my family situation was, and I said complicated. She said all families are complicated at this stage, and there is a reason privacy exists. She did not ask me to justify my caution. She asked me to sign things and to breathe. By Friday, there was a trust with a name that sounded like a small sailboat. An advisor at my bank who had a tie so tight it looked like a warning helped me set up accounts. He used phrases like low risk and diversified and long term. Every serious adult I met told me to think in decades, not in the confetti burst of this week. I nodded as if nodding could keep me from making a mess. My first purchase was not a car or a watch or an apartment with a view. It was a gift for the version of myself who had survived 18 years without being seen. I went to a used bookstore tucked between a tailor and a bakery. It smelled like dust and almonds and 1,000 minds. I bought a stack of novels and a clean notebook and the expensive pencil I had always judged in the glass case. It felt ridiculous and pure at the same time. I carried the bag like it was fragile because it was. Meanwhile, Damon became a highway. Photos under the stadium lights, photos leaning against the truck, photos with the truck in the background, while friends wrote captions about savage summers and unbreakable bonds. Our parents framed 2 pictures for the hall, Damon with a ribbon around his neck, and I without a ribbon. They did not hear the statement the wall made. 2 weeks later, Damon asked if he could borrow money for a set of custom rims, because he had an image to protect. He phrased it as a team responsibility. I said I did not have spare cash because of books and rent. He called me a monk under his breath, with a laugh he thought I could not hear. Our father said boys will be boys, and our mother said Damon was improving his future. I said nothing because silence still felt like the only room where I was in charge. Then a small accident altered my timetable. Damon misjudged a turn, leaving a parking lot, clipped a hydrant, and tore a piece of the truck's stomach. Insurance covered the main repair, but not the extras. The house went frantic. Cubs of panic scattered across the kitchen. I watched my parents scramble and realized they would always scramble for Damon and ask me to be proud of the scramble. That night, I told them I would be moving out before college started. I said I had saved enough for a deposit if I chose a place near campus. They asked why I was rushing, and I said it was time. They said family saves money under one roof, and I said independence was cheaper than resentment. They looked at me the way you look at a server who says the kitchen is out of your favorite dish. I found a studio 6 blocks from the river, a single room that felt like a held breath. When I pulled up with my boxes, Miles was waiting with a pizza, and the kind of smile that made the room feel inhabited before I turned on the light. We pushed the mattress against the wall and declared the corner near the window an office simply because the sun chose it. That night, I fell asleep without the echo of someone else's priorities. The secrecy could not last forever. Secrecy never does, in families that treat privacy as an insult. My brother likes to borrow without asking. He likes to wear my shoes because we are the same size. He likes to use my old laptop because his needs were always urgent, and mine could be postponed. He He found the math workbook one afternoon when he came by to collect a phone charger I supposedly owed him. The ticket was no longer inside, but the law firm's card I had tucked behind the spine remained. He recognized the name because he had seen it on a billboard. He suspected. Curiosity is a bloodhound in homes like ours. A confrontation bloomed the following Sunday, when my mother asked if there was any good news I wanted to share before she discovered it online. I asked what she meant. She said a little bird had told her I had been talking to professionals, and she hoped I was not getting mixed up with aggressive people. Damon stood behind her with his arms crossed and the expression of a man who cannot believe his sidekick has a secret interior. Our father leaned in his chair and used his seminar voice. Families are strongest when resources are pooled, he said. If you are thinking of taking on debt or a risky venture, we should make decisions together. I said I was fine and there was nothing to decide together. Damon laughed and said the app I had used left a text notification on my old phone that he had borrowed weeks ago. I felt the ground move. He said we should make a plan as a team because this amount could change everyone's life, including the person who has always lifted the heavy end of Damon's story. My mother cried tiny tears about the mortgage, and my father cleared his throat about utilities and obligations and fairness. The argument escalated like a slow boil. I reminded them that fairness had been a performance when Damon needed new cleats, a trip, a training camp, and a truck. I reminded them that my life had been arranged around the idea that quiet people do not cost much. They told me I was ungrateful and dramatic. I used the oldest sentence I own. I said no. They demanded numbers. I said the numbers were between the trust and me. Damon called me selfish. I thought of the rims he wanted in a month that could pay my rent for a year. I felt something inside me click into place. It was not cruelty. It was clarity. I stopped answering messages for 2 days. Then I wrote an email that was polite and final. I said I would not be paying the truck loan. I said I would not cover late fees on a credit card. I said one day, when the weather in our family was different, we could sit and examine how we got here. I said I love them in the way you love your past because it built you, not because you owe it your future. The next months moved quietly in my new apartment. Ms. Patel guided the claim. The trust collected the winnings. The advisor placed the money in instruments that sounded like boring furniture. I bought nothing that could speak from the curb. I took the bus to campus and let the simple choreography of a public ride unspool my nerves. Miles and I celebrated small victories with tacos and cheap sparkling water because we are not built for champagne. I attended early classes and late seminars and discovered that my mouth works better when I talk about ideas than when I defend myself at a dinner table. Damon's life grew heavier. He took the truck to places where noise is more important than destination. Tickets followed. Repair bills multiplied. Attention did what attention always does when the spotlight moves on. It abandoned him with a laugh that sounded cruel in the dark. Our parents attempted to pay, to protect, to insist that this moment was just one bad pass in a long game. They asked me again for help. I said I was helping in the only way that changed anything. I was refusing to feed the machine that ate me for years. Then the call came that tightened every muscle in my neck. It was my grandfather Arturo, my mother's father. He lives 2 hours away and wears the kind of blue work shirt you cannot find in stores anymore. He said he was proud of my graduation and wanted to know if I had thanked the person who made my luck possible. I asked what he meant. He said he was talking about the lottery ticket he had bought to tuck into my graduation card because he had been a boy who never got the big present, and he wanted to honor the boy who survives the quiet. I sat down on my studio floor as if gravity had doubled. I told him the ticket had won. He whistled softly the way he does when a soccer player scores from midfield. He said this is a test, not a miracle. He said I did not owe anyone payment for the years they chose a different narrative. He said I owed him one thing. I asked what. He said I owed him a life that would make me proud when I am old, and the past is a movie I can only watch. That week, I drove to his town with a bag of groceries and a knot in my throat. We drank coffee at his kitchen table while the clock ticked like patience. He told me stories about being the middle boy in a house that worshipped the eldest and forgave the youngest. He said the middle child learns to build bridges, and that is fine when the river is real and not a moat built by entitlement. He hugged me before I left and slipped another lottery ticket into my pocket as a joke. It won nothing, and the zero felt like a blessing. By winter, Damon's truck had changed hands twice and was currently in a different driveway on the other side of town. He pretended not to care. He pretended new dreams. Our parents pretended nothing had changed and then called me at night to ask what to do about the bills with interest. I recommended credit counseling and patience. They said patience does not talk to collectors on Tuesdays. I said I was sorry, but I would not step backward into a pattern that had been killing me in slow motion. At school, I declared a major. I found a professor who liked my stubborn essays and pushed them harder. I worked mornings in the campus archive and grew fond of the dust that lives on old paper. I kept Sundays free for quiet. I ate simple food and saved like savings were a form of art. The trust earned while I learned, and for the first time in my life, it felt like my days and my money were growing together instead of fighting. The breaking point for my parents came in the spring when the bank sent a letter with bold print. They called in a panic. I listened. I said there were 3 options: sell the house and downsize, refinance with penalties, or flood me with guilt until I fall back into my old, obedient generosity. I said option 1 would hurt but heal. I said option 2 might work if they changed habits. I said option 3 had expired forever. My father sighed like a man whose favorite myth had been debunked. My mother said she did not recognize me anymore. I said she was finally meeting me. The house was sold in June. They found a smaller place closer to my grandfather. Damon moved into an apartment with 2 teammates and a couch that looked as if 6 parties had made a home there. I went to help my parents pack, because decency is different from surrender. In my old room, I found the crepe paper photo backdrop folded in a box. I touched it and felt the memory without reliving the pain. My mother sat on the empty bed and apologized without asking for money. And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. She said she did not understand then. She said she was busy loving the twin who announced his needs loudly and forgot the twin who carried his needs quietly. She did not ask forgiveness. She gave me the truth. That was enough. Summer brought better jobs and a new confidence. I invested a small share through the trust into a fund that supported first-generation students at our college. I asked the dean to keep my name off the donor list, and he agreed with a warm smile that said he knew one day I would claim the generosity. Miles and I started a tiny company fixing and reselling old laptops. He handled the soldering, and I handled the spreadsheets. We sat on my floor with parts and pizza and laughed at the fact that we were building instead of complaining. In August, Damon called late. He sounded tired in a way that could not be disguised with jokes. He said the noise had gotten him nowhere. He said he was working nights at a delivery warehouse and trying to pass classes, and nothing looked like the poster he had imagined. He did not ask for money. He asked how to sit with disappointment without falling apart. I told him the truth, and I wish someone had told me years earlier. I told him attention is not love, and applause is not a plan. I told him to pick one thing and get good at it quietly. I told him the quiet can hurt at first because it is an unfamiliar house, but it becomes a home if you furnish it with the right habits. He said thanks. He said he had been a jerk. He used a different word, but the meaning was there. He said he remembered me walking to work senior year in the rain while he posted photos from parties, and he did not understand how that looked until now. I said understanding is late rent, not eviction. We were brothers again, in the way that matters, not in the way that photos demand. On the anniversary of graduation, I returned to my parents' new place. It was smaller, but it breathed. No more crepe paper, no more staged expectations. We ate grilled chicken on real plates instead of paper ones and watched the sun bend itself around the neighbor's fence. My mother handed me a small white envelope and laughed at herself. She said not a lottery ticket this time. Coffee shop vouchers and a handwritten note. The note thanked me for choosing a life that did not cost me my self-respect. I kept the envelope because it weighed more than it looked. What did I do with the rest of the money? The part everyone always wants to hear. A boring miracle. I left it mostly where it grows by inches. I bought a used hatchback with good mileage and a stereo that did not hiss. I paid my rent a year ahead. I purchased a second-hand sofa that did not collapse under conversation. I took my grandfather to a ball game and bought him a hot dog and a hat, and watched him watch me like he had done when I was 5 and learning how to tie laces. When the 7th inning stretch arrived, he squeezed my shoulder and said, "The ticket did not change you. You changed when you realized you could choose." That is the story. A twin who always felt like a reflection learns he is a person. A lottery ticket that looked like another small joke becomes a key. A family accustomed to gravity learns what happens when the quiet sun stops holding up the end. If there is a lesson, it is not about luck. It is about ownership. Not of trucks or houses or accounts, but of your own name. I still walk to the used bookstore. The expensive pencil is half its original size. The notebook beside my bed holds lists of ordinary things. Call grandfather. Fix the cabinet hinge. Finish the essay on archives and memory. Meet Miles for lunch. Do not forget the way the porch sounded when you sat alone with a lottery ticket and chose not to surrender the rest of your life to the shape of someone else's need. Sometimes I pass a parking lot and see a boy my brother's age polishing the hood of a car as if shine were security. I wish him well and keep walking. Sometimes I see the exact model of the silver truck that appeared on our street a year ago, with a bow that taught me everything. I do not hate it. The truck was not the villain. It was a mirror I finally learned how to step away from. The last line belongs to my grandfather. He likes to talk with his hands and call everyone a kid until they are 90. He told me recently that most people wait for a grand rescue when what they need is a handful of small permissions. Permission to value themselves. Permission to refuse scripts. Permission to be the person who closes the account that drains them and opens the one that earns interest. He said the ticket gave me that permission, and all I had to do was sign. I signed. I grew. I slept. I woke up in a life that fits. And the best part of the story is not the number in the bank. The best part is that when my name is called, in a room with no banners or balloons, I stand up, and it sounds like me.